speaking with Leigh Whannell over Upgrade.
That nerd show is a show that I'm perfect for.
See, we're the perfect guys to talk to because we love talking about all this stuff. And it was kind of funny, a few years ago, we did a podcast, one of our more serious ones, and asked the question, are we ready for artificial intelligence? Because it's a very allegorical question and stuff. So it kind of got brought up again after we saw this film. But what I wanted to start with this, I feel like for every filmmaker, storyteller, there's that one underlying question that you're trying to answer, and that's how your story develops. What was that question for you in writing this?
Well, storytelling for me always starts with an idea, not so much a theme or a question, but it could even just be an image or some central conceit that makes me excited. Like, I'm excited by it, I'm passionate about it, and you know that passion is going to be the thing that's going to sustain you for the years or however long it takes to get the film made. It wasn't until I really started writing the film that I started thinking about technology, and the world seemed to be catching up to the movie. When I wrote the first draft, self-driving cars were a fantasy, but all of a sudden, a few years later, it's becoming more common. And it's been interesting in the last year to watch there's been some fatalities with self-driving cars and some problems. And so I think we're in an interesting time right now where we can actually see a future of AI. It's not a sci-fi concept anymore, it's a science fact concept. And just grappling with that. How much are we going to give over to computers? How much are we going to let them do for us? Is an interesting question.
Well, we're huge Star Trek fans in our outlet, and I use data as an example of that perfect commentary on humanity, from Next Generation, and trying to be more human, trying to understand things. But again, when you kind of get into talking about artificial intelligence, story-wise, it's kind of a cautionary tale about, can you really fault it if it's wanting to learn or it's trying to fix imperfections, how they see it, which I thought was kind of interesting about this, because you kind of get the idea that it's a villain, but at the same time, if you look at how we are in trying to understand the world around us, we're explorers, and it is that exploration and trying to make things better, because it doesn't think that what's-his-face is making
there's an interesting crossover with humans and computers, at least in storytelling. Human beings want to give so much to computers and let them do so much. Computers or artificial intelligences want to be human. They want to be us. So we're desperate to give everything to them, and they're desperate to be us. And so that kind of crossover was interesting, that one wants the other,
When you first came up with the concept, was it always from the beginning that it would be in the form of a chip that would make somebody walk again?
Yeah, that was actually the very first seed of an idea that came to me, was a chip that helps a paralyzed person move their limbs again. There was something in that I felt like there's a story here.
Well, it's easy to kind of get into why we would do something like that, because if you don't have any motor function whatsoever, and the chance to be able to walk again into this new technology, it's easy to surrender yourself to it.
Absolutely, and I actually chatted to a surgeon at UCLA before I made the film and asked him, is this concept, this science fiction concept I'm wanting to write about, a chip that sort of bridges the gap between the nerve endings, is that something that you could see being a reality? And he said yes. He's like, in theory, all you need is to bridge that gap. But someone who's paralyzed has just had that cord cut. The signal to move your arm is not reaching the arm. And that's the definition of paralysis. So, in his words, a chip could, if scientists could figure it out, a chip could send that signal for the brain, on behalf of the brain. So maybe there'll be a day when the central concept of Upgrade is a reality, and which will be a great thing for people who are experiencing paralysis to be, to have something like that.
What do you feel like is that balance between humanity and artificial intelligence? And I know that's not an easy question to really answer at once you really think about it, but
it's tough because I wonder where it's going, because human beings have a tendency to build things that can destroy us. We do it all the time. There's a little bug who wants to join in the fun. We do it all the time. I mean, think of nuclear weapons. I mean,
Sure.
Here's an equation that was not meant to be used in that way.
right.
But was. We are the architects of our own destruction all the time.
Sure.
And so when I see the best technological minds in the world striving to come up with better and better AI, or when I see one of those YouTube videos of those robots that can open doors or flip over, everybody has a laugh right now, but you're looking at it and you're like, it's pretty easy to join the dots between that and a super soldier whose sole mission is to destroy us. We don't have a chance against a robot,
Right. Well, but I think that's what, when Asimov was starting to write all the robot stories and the three laws, I think that was the main thing that he was trying to explore is there are certain things that in humanity that we're emotional, that sometimes we're illogical, makes us better because we think on those terms. And AI, I don't know, maybe there's just that one little thing that they can't seem to cross over because they're not human. They don't have those emotions.
Yeah, they don't. They're not built from the same stuff.
Right.
They may be able to think, but I think emotions are the things that separate us from computers, and in a way that makes them better decision makers, doesn't it? I was interested to hear someone talking on the radio once saying that self-driving cars will create less car accidents. And the person interviewing him said, why? And he said, because computers can drive better than humans. Humans aren't very good drivers. We're distracted, we make these bad decisions. A computer doesn't do any of that. So it was interesting to look at it through that.
I can see that, but at the same time, I think there's certain reactions that humans have when they're driving that, it's a catch-22. Some are good, some are bad. I'm all for the self-driving cars if they all use their turn signal, because apparently nobody can do that anymore. We're so lazy that we can't flip one.
I live in Los Angeles, and I think I've seen 3 people in the years I've been living there actually use the turn signal.
Right.
So I hear you there. You know what, the really interesting thing about self-driving cars is the people designing them are having trouble with the moral side of it, because they have to figure out if a self-driving car is driving towards someone who's standing in the middle of the road.
Right.
What will the car do? Will it drive through that person, saving the life of the passenger, or do you veer off the road, save the life of the person in the middle of the road, but potentially kill the passenger by crashing? How does a computer make a split-second moral decision about who to kill?
Well, I had an ethics professor in college who could probably answer those questions better. So I really loved her. But one of the things that I thought was pretty brilliant about this film is that instead of him just being able to walk, the AI is also a detective and trying to solve crime scenes and stuff. Mm-hmm. So you kind of get that ambiguity of, there are dangers to it, but there's also that logical sense that we need of a human cop being able to work with a logical intelligence to solve a crime. Right. Personally, that's one area where I could definitely get behind for artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
But then again, there's that moral ambiguity of decision making and stuff that goes with it.
I think it depends on how you're using it. If an artificial intelligence is helping to gather information and put together scenarios that maybe humans couldn't have done, that's fine. I think if you start arming artificial intelligences, if you have a drone that flies around that's armed, that's where things get dicey. It's all about, I guess it all comes down to that decision of giving giving the decision to kill to a machine, there's something scary about that. I mean, there's plenty of problems in the news with police killing people, and there's debates about when they decide to do it. But at the very, very least, it's a human being making this decision. Imagine a machine making that decision to shoot. That's where things
Well, like James Bond said, you'd still need a human being to be able to pull that trigger or not pull it.
Or not pull it. Yeah, that was a great line from Scott.
I know.
What is he saying? He goes, I can do more in my pajamas before breakfast than you can with a Beretta out in the field. And he actually says, he says, or not pull it. Hard to tell which in your pajamas.
I know, exactly.
That line.
So what would it be for you personally? I mean, would you surrender yourself to an AI?
To a certain degree, I would. Look, if we look at cars, I would love to not have to drive. Driving, I live in Los Angeles. Driving is the bane of my existence. If I could get stuff done while the car did the driving, I think that would be a real gift. But like a lot of people, I still have that trust factor that's not quite there yet.
Now, I would be remiss if I didn't ask this about cooties. If you ever plan a sequel. Because I feel like we need to know what happens to them after they drive off into the sunset. And it's one of our favorite horror comedies.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. You must be one of the 8 Cooties fans that exist in the world.
I couldn't stop laughing when we did the press screening years ago.
Oh, man. It's, people often ask me with this movie Upgrade, they'll say, like, so obviously you've left room for a sequel.
Sure.
And I say to them, no, like, a sequel is an assumption of success.
Right.
I'm way too superstitious to assume that. I only think about the movie at hand. Cooties is an example of how much hubris is involved with planning sequels, because that movie, no one's going to make a sequel to that movie because why? You only make sequels to successful movies. And so if Cooties had been a hit, I would have loved to go out and explore the adventures of that.
Yeah, but I feel like it's a cult favorite.
Is it a cult favorite?
I do. I think it's up there with Firefly, so, I mean, yes. I know. Alright, so at that Nerd Show, we always love to ask a very nerdy question at the end of all of our interviews.
Sure.
And we generally have one question for every year. If you could have a superpower or even some kind of weapon of choice from the nerd universe, be it a lightsaber, Thor's hammer, just anything to fight the forces of evil, what would that be for you personally?
Oh, to fight the forces of evil. You know, I'm definitely not going to go with any piece of bat equipment because I can barely program the remote for my TV. You know, Batman's just a guy. You know, he may be buff or whatever, but he's relying on stuff.
Right.
You know, so definitely not going to that world. I think you really can't go past Superman because, you know, the main thing that kills in this world is still bullets.
Sure.
And so you take care of that problem, and he can fly. So I feel like Superman is basically a collection of human being wish fulfillment put into a blender.
Right.
The guy can dodge bullets, fly, see through walls. Who doesn't want to see through walls?
Exactly.
So basically, I'm going to take Superman every time.
That's a good
And you
one.
said to pick one. I picked a whole character. Can I just be Superman?
That's perfectly fine.
Okay, so, and I'd be great at the Clark Kent role, you know? Like, I'd be great at bumbling around and pretending to be that guy.